I've probably worked on 20 Aerotropolis projects around the world to date. This by far is the most successful. For the success of the ZAZ, and I always say I take 1% credit, 1% for the inspiration, but they take 99%. It's been an incredible, to use an English term, metamorphosis, transformation.
John Cassada， 郑州航空港经济综合实验区首席顾问，郑州航空大都市研究院院长，国家外专千人计划专家，航空大都市概念模型的创立者，国际航空城会议主席，美国北卡罗来纳大学荣誉教授，代表作《航空大都市：我们未来的生活方式》。
Mr. Cassada, welcome to our studio.
谢谢，你好，荷兰。
Pretty good. It sounds as you are just a good friend of Henan now. Do you still remember the first interview?
I do. Way back in 2013 when the ZAZ was first formed by the State Council, back in March 2013. So time flies, over 5 years now.
Yeah. So you showed great enthusiasm, and today you are still in a very fun and energetic state. How do you preserve your vitality and enthusiasm?
I think because I enjoy my work, and it is particularly invigorating and energizing to see the success of a aerotropolis such as the Zhengzhou Airport Economy Zone. It gives me a great sense of satisfaction and pleasure, and when you observe these great successes, it makes you feel good, and I think when you feel good, you look better.
Yeah, that's a good philosophy. So, are you aware how many times you have been here in Henan in the past few years?
Well, usually 4 or 5 times a year, so multiply that by 5 and over 20.
Wow, that's really a lot of times. Do you still remember the first time when you touched the land of Henan province?
I do, and it was in the original terminal. I remember seeing the property where the ZAZ is now, and it was mostly rural and villages, and it's been an incredible, to use an English term, metamorphosis, transformation in this, at that time, relatively isolated semi-rural airport area into what can today be described as an economic dynamo.
So, generally speaking, what was your impression of Henan at that time?
My impression was it's a second-tier city. Not quite up to the standards of a Beijing or a Shanghai or even Guangzhou in terms of, let's say, hotels and urban amenities, bright lights effect, various types of fine dining or trendy dining and shopping, and even in Zhengzhou and Henan, I've seen a tremendous progress on those fronts in the last 5 years. Not just the ZAZ, but in many respects, I see now Zhengzhou as a Tier 1 city.
We understand that shortly after the ZAZ was approved by the State Council, you became the chief advisor. I would rather say it's a challenge.
Well, it was, but it was a pleasant challenge. I was actually originally employed by the municipality of Zhengzhou to do a strategic roadmap for what became the ZAZ. At that time, it was the Zhengzhou Experimental Comprehensive Zone, but I was asked to give a roadmap, a plan, a strategy for development that would not be a master plan saying this exactly has to go here or you have to do that, but this is what you need to do. These are the objectives that you should be thinking about. This is the way, the best way to get there. And this is what I did in the roadmap, and what's absolutely amazing is how effectively the administrative committee of the Zhengzhou Airport Economy Zone, which I'll call ZAZ, implemented that roadmap and the recommendations. They followed it to a T with great success. I've probably worked on 20 Aerotropolis projects around the world to date. This by far is the most successful one. And what I found is that any strategy is only as good as its implementation. That the most successful strategy, the most careful strategy will fail unless there is an appropriate qualified organization to implement it. And that's what pleases me so much about the ZAEZ.
I couldn't agree with you more. Actually, the roadmap is perfect. At the same time, the implementation is marvelous, right?
Well, the implementation has been fantastic here. I've had no Aerotropolis group that I've worked with around the world that has implemented so carefully and precisely and efficiently as they have here in Zhengzhou.
The very first time we interviewed you, you were very optimistic about the future of the AEZ. We had the interview. Let's take a look.
卡萨达教授认为，在18、19和20世纪，影响商业选址的因素分别是河道与海港、公路和高速路。然而，在21世纪，影响商业选址的因素变为了机场。卡萨达说，随着越来越多的商业企业在机场以及交通走廊周围集聚，一种新型的城市出现了——航空大都市。郑州航空港经济综合实验区作为中国首个航空港经济发展先行区，受到了卡萨达的高度评价。
河南处在中国产业向中西部转移发展的十字路口，这里拥有非常丰富的人力资源，经济发展非常迅速，服务和连通性比中国其他任何城市都要好，所以郑州航空港经济综合实验区的发展前景是非常广阔的。
At that time, the AEZ was just approved. But how come you were so confident that it would be the most prospective aerotropolis in China? Where did that confidence come from?
Well, to be honest with you, I was not confident. Maybe I had a good face that looked confident. I was optimistic that it would be a success. But I had been involved in others before that showed great promise, did not achieve the promise. And what amazes me is not just in achieving to become the most efficient and effective implementation of Aerotropolis models, but how fast they have done it, how much has been accomplished so quickly. I've seen major accomplishments elsewhere, but not in 5 years. The amount of economic output, the amount of trade, the various types of clusters that have formed, that have followed the basic roadmap principles of economic efficiency, attractiveness, and sustainability. And the ZAZ such a success. In fact, by following the 3 basic Aerotropolis principles of economic efficiency, aesthetics that look good, and sustainability, they in fact have become what might be called China's Aerotropolis. They're the leading Aerotropolis in the nation.
So it became the new model.
It has become the new model, and people are now from all over the world learning about it and flying here to observe it. So many people are coming. We want to go out to the ZAZ. We want to see it. We've heard so much about it. It is having a global impact.
Yeah, right. So in the very beginning, what did you expect the ZAZ to become, and what advice and suggestions did you give the AEZ?
Well, first and foremost, I gave them the broadest suggestion: how you develop multimodal transportation and the intermodal interfaces, how you bring air and surface transportation together, the importance of IT systems, information technology, to affect the flows of people and products, the commercial support that's needed, not just by the ZAZ, but by the Zhengzhou municipality, Henan government, and the federal government, and the knowledge support that is necessary, the need for international schools and for upgrading the universities, and what they're starting right now to attract international talent.
So now 5 years has passed. How much of your expectation turned into reality?
More than expectations. As I said, I was optimistic, but now I'm amazed at how quickly and effectively. There's a phrase that I use. They used to talk about the Zhengzhou speed and how they recruited Foxconn here. But I use the phrase, think big, act fast. And that's exactly what the ZAZ did, what Zhengzhou municipality and Henan province did with the support of Beijing. They thought big and they acted fast.
So such great changes and developments are very inspiring. Our editor also prepared a short video, so just enjoy.
5年来，郑州航空港经济综合实验区经济总量增长了3.4倍，达到700.1亿元，建成区面积达到80平方公里，扩大了4倍。 外贸进出口总额达到498.1亿美元，占全省总量近70%，招商引资连续5年实现超1000亿。2017年，郑州机场年货邮吞吐量首次突破50万吨，首次跻身全球机场50强。旅客吞吐量首次突破2430万人次，跃升至全国第13位。郑州机场年客货运规模首次实现中部机场双第一。与此同时，郑州机场积极实施郑州至卢森堡双枢纽战略，航空枢纽网络结构逐步完善，新开亚特兰大萨拉戈萨航线、加密卢森堡芝加哥等航线。目前，卢货航周航班量达18班，市场份额居郑州机场首位。新引进斯洛伐克全球货运航空、比利时 ASL 航空、摩尔多瓦 ATC 等外籍航空公司。新开通布鲁塞尔、莱比锡、列日等10个通航点，空中丝绸之路枢纽支撑日益凸显。
The picture is very rosy and encouraging. As far as I know, by the end of 2017, the Zhengzhou airport handled over 24.3 million passengers, and the cargo exceeded 500,000 tons. So have they met your
Of course, to have such a ranking, I might qualify that. Cargo growth has been ranked #1 in China. Passenger growth, in 2 of the years, on a percent growth, they were ranked #1, but always in the top 5 or 10 in terms of growth. So they've been #1 in cargo and consistently in the top 10 in passenger growth. And in 1 or 2 years, they actually were the fastest growing airport passenger-wise.
So we still have great potentialities.
Absolutely. The long-term forecasts out to 2035 are phenomenal. They're expecting over 70 million passengers. Some forecasts are up to 100 million passengers. And I've seen forecasts, they're very aggressive, but as high as 5 million tons of cargo annually by 2035. And if that happens, even today's largest airport in the world cargo-wise, which is Hong Kong, has about 5 million. So they would be as big in 15 years, 20 years, less than 20 years, as the largest cargo airport in the world today. Don't forget, the airport is the core of the Aerotropolis, and the infrastructure development there continues at a very rapid pace. So they'll be adding runways, they'll be adding terminals, they'll be adding additional multimodal connectivity. And what people aren't thinking of is the tremendous increase in development that the new high-speed rail station is going to have, the South Station, which is 6 kilometers from the terminal, and all the development that will occur around that high-speed terminal, high-speed train terminal. But the terminal down at the ZAZ will be one of the largest in China, moving passengers speedily both east, west, and north, south.
Wow, it's so detailed description, a really very beautiful picture.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned that the core of Aerotropolis is the airport, but besides that, it also demands a reasonable and scientific industrial layout. So far, how do you comment on such development in the AEZ?
Well, the industrial layout has been very carefully planned into specific zones. Most of the high-tech and modern industry is in the south, but there's also bits of it scattered in the aviation zone near the airport and also in the north. There are plans to develop a major new city in the ZAZ, which will be a very important city, and that design work is going on right now. There are plans going on for a higher education complex to provide the knowledge workers and the laboratories and programs to assist in the upgrading of the skill levels and management talent for the ZAZ. So the planning has been quite scientific. The layout of where the biomeds and pharmaceuticals park will be, where the smartphone production will be located, where the urban services district will be. This has all been carefully planned. They have a very, very good.
I was told that you visited the biomedicine park and the smart industrial park and also the expo garden.
Yes.
So
I
what's
did.
your impression?
Well, of course, watching the smartphone park develop over the last 3 years has been amazing because the backbone of smart devices has been Foxconn. But Foxconn has continued to be the most important, but other smartphone suppliers and manufacturers have located in the ZAZ, many of them in the smartphone business park, and now I understand there are upwards of 60 of these, either located in the smartphone business park or not far from it, that have produced a total, along with of iPhone production this past year, of 299 million smartphones, of which 103 million were the iPhone. But people don't realize that ZAZ is now producing more smartphones that are not iPhones than they are iPhones. Everyone thinks of Apple and Foxconn, but the smart devices is much more.
Other brands.
Other brands.
I think the biomedicine park is very interesting.
It is. It's in the much earlier stages because there's not a history of biomedicine there, but the ambitions that they have for the biomedicine park are spot on. It follows the roadmap extremely well, and what's interesting about the biomedicine park is they're not only looking into all types of scientific and advanced medicines and drugs, but also they want to implement the traditional Chinese medicine and to implement its and assess and really promote the types of advances that in medical treatment that the traditional Chinese medicine can provide.
I'm also aware that they have already introduced colleges or academies into the biomedicine park.
Yes, they've brought in not just the local universities, but they've been very aggressive in trying to and succeeding in recruiting some international talent for the biomedicine park, and some of whom are in the 1,000 foreign talent category. These are top talent. And I think people from throughout the world are going to come here and see that model of development and implementation. The ZAZ has to create an environment where people want to live, work, and play.
Your book, Aerotropolis, The We Will Live Next, introduced some successful examples such as Memphis Airport in the United States, the Dubai, the Hong Kong airports. And last year when we interviewed you, you told us you were writing on your second book on Aerotropolis, dedicating a whole chapter to ZAZ. So what have you written about ZAZ?
Well, I've written about its vision, its strategy, its planning principles, its results in terms of economic output, trade, GDP, and overall land use plan. So it is a book that is a chapter in the book that is quite comprehensive, looking at the ZAZ success story and coming to the conclusion that the ZAZ is indeed China's Aerotropolis.
So can we say it's something like ZAZ solution in Aerotropolis?
Well, I think ZAZ is a model, and I think people from not just around China but from throughout the world are going to come here and see that model of development and implementation and how well they have created a world-class Aerotropolis here in Zhengzhou.
So is this kind of model worthy of being introduced to other places of the world?
It is beginning to. They're taking notice. I'm asked to write articles periodically for leading publications around the world. The media contacts me for interviews on what is going on in Henan and Henan and Zhengzhou with this airport zone. Tell us more about it. So part of my role as president of the Aerotropolis Institute China is to really provide that information and to some extent promote the accomplishments, which I'm very proud of, that have been made here at the ZAZ.
I believe as the chief advisor, you have made great contributions to ZAZ. So can you share with our audience what you have done in the past 5 years?
Well, it all began with the roadmap, providing the business rationale, the economic logic for the development. And in that roadmap, also covered the infrastructure and facility plans and guidelines for the appropriate infrastructure and facilities, and the business plan guidelines, and finally the implementation plan guidelines. That was the beginning, laying that out in 2012 and 2013. Okay. Then it was working with the ZAZ and its administrative committee on the implementation, providing them as they moved at each stage of development feedback, opinions, thoughts, suggestions on each of the developments. And I found they were very receptive with those comments, thoughts, and suggestions. And this is, I think, another reason for the success, in that they have adapted as they've gone along. Not all plans which you have 4 or 5 years in the past are exactly the way you want to see things develop. People give me too much credit for the success of the ZAZ, and I always say I take 1% credit, the 1% for the inspiration, but they take 99% credit. The ZAZ Administrative Committee and its leadership in Henan Province and Zhengzhou and CAC, they did the 99%, the perspiration. I did the inspiration. They did the real work to make the ZAZ successful, and I'm just so proud to see them implement. And why am I proud? Because it makes me look good. Because they are showing that the model works, that the Aerotropolis model is a way to open up and to transform a region to the highest level of economic productivity and impact worldwide. They have done this here, and they have done this through the Aerotropolis model, creating a world-class Aerotropolis here around the airport on this 415 square kilometers.
So 1% inspiration plus 99% perspiration equals a perfect Aerotropolis model. So the past 5 years witness great achievement in the
And that took perspiration, that took work.
Yeah.
And I could sit and give grand ideas, but I'm not the one that actually ended up developing the infrastructure, recruiting the investors. This was all done by the ZAZ and its supporting government bodies.
So regarding the next future development, what advice or suggestions will you be giving to the ZAZ?
Well, what they want to do with their next 5-year plan is move from quantity to quality. They still want to continue the rapid economic growth, but they want to do it with higher caliber industrial production, which might be called innovation-driven industry. And they want to bring in advanced business services, recruiting advanced cross-border e-commerce, software engineering, various big data, cloud computing. These are all part of the mission, and scientific-based industries such as the biomedicine park. But this is going to require an expansion of the knowledge base and the trained, educated labor beyond what exists today. So there's a major challenge that ZAZ has as it moves up this quality of production to higher value products and higher value services, to recruit and retain the talented labor, the skilled labor. And to do that, they're going to have to create an environment that acts as a magnet to attract that labor and keep them there. And what we have found is that over the past 2 decades, in doing the roadmap, I found that there was a leakage of talent from Henan Province to Beijing, to Shanghai. More when people would get their degrees and then move to Beijing or Shanghai. I mean, there's more talent going out, and so to reverse that talent flow, bring it to Henan. There's no better place than ZAZ, but to do that, the ZAZ has to create an environment where people want to live, work, and play. You can build roads, you can build factories, you can build office buildings, but creating an urban environment is so much more. The social side of that is the trendy dining, the fashion clothing, the institutions that they can participate in, the various quality housing that exists, the entertainment and leisure facilities. They have to create an urban ambiance to attract the quality labor and the skilled labor to meet the needs of these knowledge-based industries and innovation-driven industries that they're seeking.
You are both the founder of Aerotropolis theory and a major push hand of the AEZ. You mentioned in many occasions the AEZ is quite a successful example. So in what aspects has the 5-year development here supported your theory or even enriched your theory?
Well, I've learned from it. The one thing I have learned is the importance of effective administration and implementation. And that is watching the administrative committee steward this development. It's a lesson that I have learned and I convey to other areas of how you do it right. Not how you just get it right, but how you do it right.
How you do it
and they have gotten it right, I think, somewhat from the help of the roadmap and my suggestions and their own ideas, to be honest with you, but they did it right. I might be a microcosm of a think tank, but they're a mega do tank. And they have done it.
Right.
And so I have learned a lot watching the successes here. And when I lecture around the world, I'm asked to speak at conferences regularly around the world. I talk about the ZAZ and what they've accomplished, how they've accomplished it, and why they have set their goals in terms of the next stages of development and what is needed to achieve those goals. So I talk about the ZAZ all the time, and I just finished an article for the French Forum, which is a very popular French magazine in Paris, and it's called China's Aerotropolis, the ZAEZ.
Oh, that's nice.
And they asked me to write it. They kind of said, we want the French audience to learn about what is going on in terms of aerotropolis development in China. And so I used the ZAZ as an example of China's aerotropolis.
Wow, that's really very inspiring to us.
It's where it comes together in people movement and product movement, both in and out. It's all about connectivity, and connectivity can be by air, and connectivity can be by ground, and connectivity can be by cyberspace. As a matter of fact, when I'm home and I don't get here for a month or two, I get a little homesick for Zhengzhou and the ZAZ, my friends.
You know, ZAZ is a window for Henan to open to the outside world. Not long ago, in early April, our President Xi Jinping delivered a keynote speech at the opening ceremony of Boao Forum 2018, promising that China will be more and more open. Like China, Henan will open its door even wider to the outside world. So what role do you think the ZAZ will play in boosting Henan's opening up, especially in the Air Silk Road construction?
It will play a leading role in opening up, almost by definition. What an aerotropolis is a location where the global meets the local. It's where it comes together in people movement and product movement, both in and out. And so this is becoming a center of the global meeting the local. It is leading Henan province in terms of its export growth, investment from around the world, which is opening up the ZAZ. So it is the primary engine for opening up and making it an international growth pole for commerce. That is meeting the aspirations of President Xi. And if you go back to the original aspirations of the State Council in March 2013, global integration was a primary objective. Also, economic transformation was a second objective, and they have accomplished both. The ZAZ has helped integrate globally Henan province to the world, both in terms of exports and investment, and transform and lead the modernization of the provincial economy.
It's well known that this year marks the 40th anniversary of China's opening up and reform. So, as a foreigner, what impact did China's reform had on you?
First of all, it's provided me an opportunity to work here and to see implementation of the reform principles, not only in terms of industrial recruitment, but regulatory reforms that have enabled foreign carriers, air carriers, cargo and passenger, to come here, to have businesses that are international, to locate and convert their currency and do all the things that are part of the regulatory reform movement of opening up, and to connect the productivity of Henan through the industries that are being developed at the ZAZ and elsewhere to the world. So it's all about connectivity. And connectivity can be by air, and connectivity can be by ground, and connectivity can be by cyberspace. And this is what is going on. The traditional surface Silk Road connectivity is being exemplified by the rail connectivity, in particular the block trains that go through Asia, the Middle East, to Europe. But now President Xi is talking about an air Silk Road.
Yes.
And ZAZ exemplifies the air Silk Road. He mentioned Luxembourg as a particular example. Last year, Cargolux moved almost 100,000 tons of electronic and other high-value devices between Zhengzhou International Airport, CGO, and Luxembourg. And that really is the Air Silk Road. But there's more to the Air Silk Road than just moving products. The Air Silk Road also moves business people and tourists. And so this is why the passenger service is as important as the air service in the opening up of Henan province and China to the world. So I think the 21st century is going to be an aviation century, and no better example of the aviation century exists than what we're seeing right here. And then the third, the cyberspace. What we're seeing today is a fusion, a merger of the jet age and the net age. And e-commerce is the perfect example of that. You go on a computer to order your product, but the web won't move a box. Somebody has to pick it, pack it, and ship it. And that's what they're doing at the ZAZ, not just for physical products, but for fruits and vegetables and meats and seafood. They're becoming major ports of entry and export, fresh cut flowers here. This is all part of the internet-driven cross-border trade, which is called cross-border e-commerce, and it's a core development area along with the cold chain for the meat port and the fresh fruit port and perishables and biopharmaceuticals, which goes by air. So all of this is coming together. Air Silk Road, block train, rail, cyberspace with the global e-commerce and cross-border trade. It's exemplified at the ZAZ.
Yeah, and in mid-April, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and also kind of provincial government jointly launched a special event in Beijing to promote Henan to the world. Are you aware of that? I
was aware of it, but unfortunately could not attend. But I understand there was a video at the China-Henan Trade and Investment Fair, and it's very impressive. I hope your viewers can see it.
Yeah, our editor also prepared a short video. Let's take a look.
新时代的中国与世界携手，让河南出彩。4月13日，外交部河南全球推介活动，展现河南厚重的历史文化魅力，展示新时代充满生机和活力的河南。
此次推介活动吸引了150多个国家的驻华使节、国际组织驻华代表及工商界代表、中外专家学者和媒体记者等500余人出席。
新时代的河南是中国改革开放的成功缩影。近年来，河南依托开放互联，形成了海陆空网四位一体的物流通道体系，成为“一带一路”交汇处的重要的中转站。河南已经同全球200多个国家和地区建立了贸易联系，127家世界500强企业 在河南落户。随着共建“一带一路”的全面推进，河南将同世界越来越紧密的连接，实现更高层次的互利和共赢。
俄罗斯驻华大使杰尼索夫、卢森堡驻华大使于博生、埃塞俄比亚驻华大使博哈内、智利驻华大使乔马里先后致辞，积极评价习近平主席在博鳌亚洲论坛年会上发表的重要讲话，高度赞赏习近平主席提出中国进一步扩大对外开放的重大举措，充分肯定本国与河南各领域合作成果，期待与河南在“一带一路”框架下推进双方友好往来和互利合作再上新台阶。
Did it somewhat refresh or update your knowledge, your understanding of Henan province?
Both refreshed and updated, because most of my knowledge, remember, I've been laser focused on the ZAZ, and what this video did was talk about the overall assets of Henan province, from the cradle of civilization to some of the other modern developments that are taking place outside of the ZAZ. So it's a very impressive video.
Apart from Zhengzhou, have you visited any other places in Henan?
That's my next objective. I have been mostly in Zhengzhou
Engaged.
City and
so
the
busy.
ZAZ. When I come here, I really focus on working at those two locations, Zhengzhou City with the university sometimes, and various government bureaus, and then out at the ZAZ with the administrative committee and various units that are operating at the ZAZ.
Believe me, there is a lot for you to see, to discover.
I understand. I'm told about it all the time, and that video helps me because it covered some of the cultural and economic nodes that are important along with the ZAZ.
And since you became the chief advisor and also the president of Eurotropolis Institute, the time you spend here is getting longer and longer. When you are here, are you kind of homesick?
Am I what?
Homesick?
Homesick? No, I enjoy my time here very much. So, as a matter of fact, when I'm home and I don't get here for a month or two, I get a little homesick for the Zhengzhou and the ZAZ.
So,
with my friends.
Wow.
And a project that I'm very excited about and feel deeply about.
So shall I say Zhengzhou has become your second hometown?
Absolutely.
So when back home in the United States, will you talk about your experience here in China to your family or your friends?
I feel I sometimes bore them with too much talk about it, because I am so impressed, and I describe what is going on here, people-wise and physical infrastructure and investment-wise, and it is something I talk about all the time.
If you were to introduce Henan to the world, what would you say?
Rapidly emerging, dynamic, impactful, if I can use that word, because it's actually impacting the world, and a place to be seen.
Okay.
Because you can't describe it, you have to see it.
Yeah. Seeing is believing?
Seeing helps believe. Even when people come here and they see it, they say, I can't believe it.
It's incredible.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Okay. Across the vast Pacific Ocean, you traveled far away from the United States to come to China. Because of ZAZ, you have forged a close bond with Henan province, embracing an active interaction with China. Actually, I think you are participating and pushing forward China's opening up and reform.
Well, I'm committed to doing that. But as I said, I can only give ideas. The actual opening up will be done by the people and by the leaders. And this is exactly what they are doing. Henan province and all of China is opening up amazingly fast. But it isn't complete, because if you listen to President Xi, he says we have a long way to go, maybe halfway there and a long way to go. So the policy of the government is to continue to open up, and I think use Henan and the ZAZ as a key node in the opening up by focusing on those three elements of the Silk Road. The surface Silk Road, the air Silk Road, and the cyber Silk Road.
Sincerely, we hope more and more people will get to know Henan, will get to know China through your efforts. So, Mr. Casada, thank you for this interview.
Sheshe, it's a pleasure to chat with you about my favorite topic, the ZAZ.
Okay. We hope your big dream of Aerotropolis in China come true, and we also hope there is a complete success.
Xie, it's a pleasure to talk about this wonderful topic.
Thank you.